Welcome to Masterpiece Tarot. Here you'll find timeless messages to guide your soul's awakening. If you're here, trust. You are meant to be. You can support my channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. These help support my mission of creating more peace on Earth. Okay, collective, welcome in. It is the 11:11 portal, and it's a perfect time to do some twin flame readings. That term is, I think, a little bit, it's become, you know, loaded with meaning. But I think for many of us on spiritual journeys, we understand that, there are those unique souls that enter our lives that we share a certain resonance with, and that we experience that kind of mirroring energy that results in growth on both sides. So whether you're in a relationship in a traditional sense, friends on the journey together, maybe you see yourself as counterparts, divine counterparts. These are all just labels, but if you're in a dynamic like this, you'll know what I mean. And I just want to emphasize that I think the label is a little funny. We can encounter many of these types of relationships depending on how conscious we are in one lifetime. I don't personally believe we have just one twin flame, but I think that one of those types of relationships can certainly last a lifetime. When they don't, it doesn't mean you can't find another one, and it doesn't mean somebody before was false. So that's my personal opinion on it. Yeah. So here we go with our reading. Thank you, Spirit, for using me as a channel to bring through these messages for the highest good of the collective. We're going to do a you and them reading. This is you and your twin flame. Alrighty. Alrighty, here we go. This is you over here on the left, collective. Wait, let me do one more good shuffle here. I just realized, did not cut the deck, nor did I do one of these shuffles. I do like to do a couple of them, if it's the first time I'm using the deck for the day. Okay. Alrighty. You and them. We're going to get the energy. We're going to get the energy here. Yeah. Alright, here we go. Here you are. 10 of Wands. Big load. Something a little burdensome here. About ready to lay it down though, collective. That's 10s are completions, so yeah, not a bad thing. You've been quite strong on this journey. And they are sitting in a Page of Cups. Okay. Yeah. Okay. The bridging energy here. We have the Hermit. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. What's the strength in this connection, Spirit? The Magician in the reverse. Okay. Okay. How about a challenge? Death and rebirth. Wow. This is quite beautiful, actually. I think for the twins that I'm referring to or reading on here, I'm seeing you have been on a journey for some time. It looks like you're nearing your destination. You might be able to unload a little bit. You might be entering a period of rest. It might be that you've been pushing forward on your spiritual journey for a long time or for some time, and now you've come to a point of calm. You're going to lay these burdens down for some period of time. So there's a sense maybe of, recovery, of quiet, relative quiet. And on their side, This is somebody who is contemplating love. They might be on their own journey, learning about emotion right now. They might be getting a little bit more in touch with their feelings. We have a little two hands holding a heart here. There's kind of that playful, youthful energy here. Yeah, and this is like, it's like this is a part of self here that needs to become embodied in a way, like come back down to earth. This is like head in the clouds type of energy. And so this is somebody who's maybe getting real about what it means to offer a cup of love. And with the Hermit energy bridging, that makes sense, right? You're both kind of in an introspective phase here, it would seem. And here we have this staircase. And I noticed that it's a shallow staircase. So when you're ascending this staircase, it's like slow going as you move up. But then here we have somebody who almost is like levitating, like they've become quite light during this time of solitude. As they're introspecting and removing external energies, their field is becoming purified, their energetic field is becoming cleansed, and it's easier to hear the language of one's own soul, to connect in with one's own soul. And, this period of time when there might be a separation, if you're both doing the hermit thing, is really important because, there's so much mirroring that happens, and then you need a period of time to like integrate what you're learning, right? And then with the Magician in the reverse, this is about manifestation. It can also be about influence. And very often in connections and relationships, we're constantly influencing one another. It's a back and forth of energy, right? But in the reverse, it's almost like reinforces this idea that by going into Hermit, by taking space, there's an opportunity to stop pushing against the other or pulling on the other. It's like you're granting one another an opportunity to be sort of like undisturbed, not needing to act. There's a sense of being able to use one's energy for oneself rather than manifesting out into the world, right? When it's in the reverse, it's like manifesting for self, allowing this energy to be used to expand one's own soul or consciousness. So that's the opportunity, is to take a break. Challenge, death. Yeah, things transform when we're in these conscious relationships. Everything is constantly in a state of transition and change and flux. That's not to say there aren't periods of evenness and calm. And in fact, the whole relationship can be even and calm, but nonetheless, things will always be changing and transforming. And sometimes the changes are big and sometimes they're little. But anytime there's a death, there needs to be a release. And sometimes it's difficult to let go. And there needs to be a faith in the rebirth. But for these people right now, this is challenging. It's challenging to trust in this process, I think, maybe. Especially if you're new to the journey. A lot of people have very rigid ideas about what relationships should look like. I mean, it all depends on what you're looking for. If you're at a point in your life where you absolutely know that you want to have a family, then it makes sense why you would be quite particular about whether you're going to end a relationship and keep looking for a new one, whereas maybe later in life you are more open to the ebbs and flows. There's not so much pressure to make certain things happen on a certain timeline. So it just depends on where you are. But no matter where you are, collective, this can be challenging. We'll have to see what it's about. Let's see what it's all about, Spirit. Let's use these guys here. Whoopsies. Okay. It can also pose challenges, this death and rebirth, especially the death part. You know, when we go into a separation, if we're not used to that, or we need to have more space, it can bring up a lot of fears. You know, it can bring up fears of abandonment, fears of rejection, fears of loss, you know, fear of heartbreak and pain. But if you're on one of these types of journeys, every time you encounter that, you get better at it. You understand what's happening and why, right? So, alrighty, let's clarify you here, collective. We have a Knight of Swords in the reverse and a Three of Cups in the upright. Yeah, so what I'm seeing here in your energy as we're just talking about all of this is that, you know, you might be laying down some of the burdens that you've experienced in this dynamic. That's maybe what this burden here symbolizes, because the context of the reading. And along with that, you're going to be laying down this Knight of Swords energy, this rushing in with messages, moving very fast, you know, ready to speak truth and cut things off, and right. So you might be laying that down, and instead maybe moving towards Soul Tribe, right? Focusing more on your community, focusing more on family, stepping away from this intense dynamic that you clearly have been experiencing with this other person. And on their side, what's the Page of Cups about, Spirit? Tell us about the Page of Cups. Okay, we have a Five of Swords in the reverse and a Nine of Wands in the reverse. They are moving away from some type of conflict, adversity. I think because they're tired. I think because they don't want to feel like a wounded warrior anymore. They want to rest, is what I'm seeing. They want to process this, whatever's happening here, in their own way. And so I see you, feminine, or whoever you are, collective, I'm assuming, because probably most people watching are feminines, but I see that you, collective, are handling this in a different way. You're socializing, you're finding comfort in community, while they appear to be retreating a bit. Okay? So we all hermit in different ways. It's not like when you're in hermit mode you never talk to anybody necessarily. Some of us do. But many people just take extra time to journal at night, or, you know, whatever the case may be. Meditate, walk more, whatever. It's basically just means you're in a more introspective time. But I must say, in my own experience, I very much enjoy having that experience of no disruptions. I really do. And then when I rejoin the world, it feels wonderful. I feel ready to be fully present and in a very good place. Okay, Magician here in the reverse Justice in the reverse. Four of Pentacles in the reverse. Yeah, okay. Well, so there's something that can feel a little bit uncomfortable, I think is what I would say, about being a magician in the reverse. If you're very used to manifesting, maybe it's that you're mutually manifesting this connection. Taking this break can feel a little challenging, even though it's a strength, the ability that you both can do that and maintain positivity and, a good connection here, or at least one that continues to allow you to both reflect and grow. It's a good thing, okay, that you can pull your energy back within and use it for your own good. But that doesn't mean that it's not a little destabilizing, uncomfortable to have to let go of control. There's a real giving in, a surrendering that has to happen here in these dynamics. And sometimes we have to accept that, part of surrender is, that old expression, life's not fair, right? You can't always get what you want. You can push another person to give it to you or force yourself onto another person, but at the end of the day, what is that actually doing? So, balancing the scales, thinking everything's got to be equal, this and that, it's a little misguided, at times, especially if somebody's needing to go through something. Sometimes one person has to accept it, right? So there's this real sense of surrender, but it looks to me like this is something you both excel at. You're both good at this, which is a wonderful quality. Surrender is like on the other end of the spectrum from controlling. Surrender, control. Okay, and there are times where we need to pull on those different energies differently, right? You don't ever want to be in a state of surrender all the time. So the balance, that walking the middle path, is so important here. And realizing at times, it's just not going to really be that balanced. And that's okay. The more you can surrender to that reality, when you're in a dynamic with two people, give and take means, allowing and giving, receiving and giving, and not always in equal measure. Let's do this here, and then we'll finish off with our connecting energy. So tell us about death and rebirth. Ooh, an Ace of Swords and a Knight of Pentacles. Yeah. This is the challenge here. The challenge is seeing the truth, accepting the truth, maybe about this Knight of Pentacles energy. So this is somebody who is wanting to plant seeds in the material realm. So, if you're in a relationship like this, we kind of alluded to it in the beginning of the reading, there's different phases of life that we all experience and go through. So like in the example of somebody who is younger and wants to have children, and somebody who doesn't want to, either because they just don't want to or because they're older, that would be an example of somebody wanting to plant seeds. I mean, quite literally, or whatever, figuratively. And so sometimes you have to go your own way in life. Sometimes a separation becomes extended, but you've shared a magical, beautiful journey with another. You've grown a lot, learned a lot, given a lot, shared a lot. And so, the challenge is facing the truth. Somebody might want to go plant seeds somewhere else or need to go plant seeds somewhere else, right? This could be your twin. This could be you. This could be both of you. Could also be a Knight of Pentacles coming in for one of you that may be better suited at this time in life. Now, if this wasn't in the challenge position, I might be more inclined to read it as one of you is the Knight of Pentacles coming in to plant seeds with the other. And in reality, that could present a challenge on the rebirth side of things if you've been through a difficult cycle. Yeah, so, you know, if there needs to be like rebuilding of trust, reconnecting, working through some things, you know, so that's the challenge. But I like that the truth is there. Sometimes truths are hard to hear, but it's an important part of having intimacy with another person. Okay, clarify this Hermit. We have a Two of Pentacles in the reverse and the High Priestess in the reverse. Yeah. This is funny. I see a juggler and I see an intuitive. This is a common dynamic in these relationships, I think, just based on what I've learned and heard other people talking about and stuff. But ultimately, the Two of Pentacles is about balance. So there's a sense that maybe things aren't balanced out yet here for you both. Maybe the intuition has been blocked, and hence the reason for Hermit, right? Having a hard time seeing the truth, having a hard time unearthing those deeper feelings, that inner guidance system. We might be cut off from that, so we might not be trusting ourselves. They might not be trusting their self. There could be a mutual thing happening around trust, around timing, around, you know, how you're allocating your energy. You know, something's not balanced. But I'm really inclined to say the guidance system, because the High Priestess often is about secret knowledge, hidden knowledge. She can see things that can't always be seen by others, you know, ruled by the intuition. So there's a sense of almost, I want to use the word a little cautiously, but psychic. You know, this ability to see a future timeline, to see a past timeline, to understand things that are energetic, that can't be necessarily seen with the logical mind. They have to be seen through the third eye, not through the senses. You can't measure the intuition. You can't quantify it. It's something that is often, we think of it as being downloaded from the spiritual realm, from the higher dimensions. So, you know, it's almost like something about your connection was out of balance and you were not able to see the way forward, to find your way. And so this is how you're each what you're doing. And I think this explains why you're doing what you're doing. I think there's probably a genuine desire to understand a little more clearly, to bring things into a better balance. If there were a lot of topsy-turvy emotions or not being on the same page, it could explain this need for hermiting, to kind of regain a sense of balance, mutual understanding. Okay, so these are twin flames in some type of a separation or a moving away motion. And let's go ahead and we'll get a couple of these cards here. Let's see. Keep going. It may feel as though you've been on this path or journey for so long, and you may even wonder if you're making any progress toward your dreams. This message is a loving reminder for you to keep going. You're almost there. Nice. That's a pretty nice message. A message of hope, encouragement, and focus. You're being asked to shift your focus away from what isn't working and toward what is. Paying extra attention to where you place your focus is the first step toward creating an amazing life. Beautiful, collective. That's a nice way to end that reading. Okay, thank you all for tuning in. Bye for now.